This is Fushan. It's a city that was home to just 758,000 people in 1985 that's now almost the same size as Hong Kong. And yet, despite its population of 7.4 million people, most of us would probably confess that we've never heard of it. It's a story that's repeated time and time again with massive cities across this vast country, and it speaks to the insane urbanisation of this emerging superpower over the past 30 years. Quick, sustained, on a huge scale, and all happening while other countries were distracted with their own problems. These are the massive Chinese cities you've never heard of. Yet. "60% of China's 1.4 billion citizens now live in cities, but it wasn't always like this. With some of the most productive agricultural land in the world, the population used to be spread across rural areas. Then, in the 1970s and 80s, social and economic reforms triggered the start of a major transition to urban living, and many of the country's small villages transformed into enormous metropolises. Today, more than 113 cities have a population of over 1 million people, and the country is home to more of the world's largest cities than anywhere else. It's a rate of progression that was only really made possible by a long-term strategic plan to control urban growth. With the majority of China's large cities concentrated in the northeast prior to the reforms, special economic zones were established to shift the country's economic centre south, while small and medium-sized cities across China were designated free trade, high-tech, economical and technological development zones to ensure investment, jobs and population growth were not just limited to a handful of areas. These widespread and varied economic incentives, coupled with massive government spending on infrastructure to better connect the country, allowed new cities to seemingly grow out of nowhere at a rate that remains unmatched at any time in human history. While the likes of Shenzhen, Guangzhou and Wuhan are now more widely known, dozens of others are yet to achieve the same notoriety, despite now having enormous populations and playing an increasingly important role in the global economy. Guiyang is a classic example of this. Home to 900,000 people before the reforms, it's now a city of 3.4 million, despite sitting more than 550 kilometres from the sea. Lacking the easy access to global markets that coastal cities enjoy, Guiyang's economy transformed from one centred around machine manufacturing and mining to services, with an emphasis on computing and big data. Foxconn, Microsoft and Huawei all now run offices in the city. Despite now boasting a modern skyline, Guiyang has retained many historical sites, including the Qingyan ancient town and Jiaxiu Pavilion, which have contributed to a growing tourism base. Though still small for China, the city opened its first metro line in 2017 and has 2 more already under construction. A network of 8 is planned in total. Heading to the east coast, Wuxi forms part of the Yangtze Delta megalopolis that's now home to over 75 million people. Nestled between Shanghai and Nanjing, the city's gone from 850,000 residents in 1985 to 3.3 million today. That's bigger than Athens. When the Wuxi New District was created in 1992, it began to turn the city into one of China's major industrial parks and a centre for scientific and industrial innovation. The likes of Siemens, Hitachi, Volvo and AstraZeneca are now all based there. This abundance of multinationals has transformed the skyline, and 21 skyscrapers have been built since 2005.